To this day, no one has discovered another. But the team from Bristol University are rising to the challenge.
See them sandstone layers up there, guys? That's where the bones are going to be. I reckon, guys, if all these channels have got bones in, one of you lot's going to have to walk out.
Although Spinosaurus was found in Egypt, fragments have surfaced all across North Africa.
In Africa, this kind of dinosaur was around for millions of years, and at various times, Spinosaurs were the most common, the largest of the predators.
Spinosaurus may have been common, but its fossils are hard to find. Still, expedition organizer Mike Benton remains optimistic.
I came to Tunisia last year. We were invited by the Tunisian paleontologists and geologists. They brought us around a lot of dinosaur sites, and this was the most amazing. Normally you expect to have to dig up bones with a huge amount of effort, but here we were tripping up over them. They were everywhere.
Thousands of bones from a vast variety of dinosaurs litter an area of 10 square miles, a scale the team have never before encountered.
The sheer number of bones in this small site is absolutely staggering. There's a whole range of bones of a large sauropod, plant-eating dinosaur.
But it's not just bones that are preserved here. Geologist Clive Truman has found evidence of how the climate of the desert has changed in 100 million years.
This fossil tree trunk has tree rings, and this tells us that the climate was seasonal because the tree grew more in a wetter part of the year than in a drier part of the year. I suppose if you wanted an idea of what the place looked like, you could say it was the Florida Everglades meets the Mississippi Delta.
Time traveler going back to the Cretaceous wouldn't recognize Tunisia. In spring, the delta turned lush and green and swollen by rains. A river coursed its way through a forest of evergreens. Hungry for tender new shoots to feed on, herds of plant-eating dinosaurs converged on the banks, while crocodiles lazed in the sun or scurried to the water for a meal. Here, primitive turtles mingled with armored fish and freshwater sharks 4 feet long. The ancient delta has long since vanished, but French paleontologist Eric Bouffetot thinks the remains of a Spinosaurus might still be there.
This is the kind of Spinosaurus specimens that have been found in recent years. This is a jaw fragment from Morocco, and it shows the tooth sockets here. And since we arrived here in Tunisia, we've already found this fossil, which also is a jaw fragment and also shows the tooth sockets here.
A jawbone is a promising start, but Eric hopes to find more of Spinosaurus. After a day of digging, the team uncovers a fossil that looks small, but its implications are colossal.
This is part of a rib here, and you can see the cross-section is absolutely huge. So this proves we've got a massive animal here.
But Dave Martil and Shamir Bouaziz from the University of Sfax in Tunisia have found something even more tantalizing. It may well be a Spinosaurus tooth. Next day at base camp, the team takes time out to explore the purpose of Spinosaurus's most bizarre feature, the large sail on its back.
The Spinosaurus has this great huge back, I reckon that its function was probably sexual.
This was full of blood vessels and could be used to control the temperature of the animal, the body temperature.
That's a radiator, blood going through.
Or the other way
heat.
around, on a cold morning it would have warmed up, perhaps.
You have to remember these sail-backed animals are living side by side with others with no sails.
The sail could have been brightly colored to attract a mate, or acted like a solar heating panel to warm it up and like a radiator to cool it down. Or maybe it stored fat when food was scarce, like a camel's hump. To know more, the team needed to find more. The discovery of more Spinosaurus teeth hints that things are starting to fit together.
Some of the teeth we find here fit this jaw perfectly well. And the interesting thing about them is that they are unlike those of normal flesh-eating dinosaurs. They are not made for slicing meat, in fact. They are rounded and conical, and actually they look like the teeth of crocodiles.
These piercing cone-shaped teeth suggest that, like crocodiles, Spinosaurus had a taste for big freshwater game. Seizing a slippery fish with a mouthful of daggers was an easy catch. Although Spinosaurus tops their agenda, team members are also finding tiny fragments of a host of other creatures. One by one, they're piecing together the clues to a tragic day in Tunisia over 100 million years ago. The river seemed tranquil. Miles away, disaster was brewing. A torrent of seasonal rain struck without warning. Caught off guard, hundreds of unwary dinosaurs were swept away. Torn apart by the deluge, their broken bodies were strewn across the ancient floodplain. This distant tragedy dashes all hopes of finding a complete skeleton of Spinosaurus. But Dave Martill still manages to get lucky.
We've just found this amazing toe bone. It's probably from one of the predatory dinosaurs. It might be from Spinosaurus. Now, when we begin to reconstruct Spinosaurus, we can start from the toes upwards.
The expedition draws to a close, Spinosaurus remains elusive. Dave Martill thinks he knows why.
Amongst all the dinosaur bones that are in this bone bed, we're finding a lot of these little fish teeth. So many of them that I can only think that the rivers here must have been absolutely teeming with fish. But you know, there are also teeth of a big predator dinosaur that could quite likely have been feeding on Spinosaurus. This is a tooth of the largest meat-eating dinosaur in Africa. This is a tooth of Carcharodontosaurus.
Spinosaurus may have been one of the biggest predators to roam the continent. But when this killer was on its tail, it ran for its life. The Sahara Desert is 3 million square miles of emptiness. A land of extremes. The blistering sun, exhausting heat, and inhospitable terrain make even the hardiest run for cover. Yet in 1995, an expedition crosses the salt flats of southern Morocco to reach this barren desert. Paul Serino, a paleontologist from the University of Chicago, has been here before.
We go to the Sahara because it's a fantastic place where you can walk over ground that's never been walked over by a team, rich in fossils, and ready to tell you about a world of dinosaurs that had become separated and had evolved into its own.
It took him almost a year to organize this venture and 4 weeks to finally get here. And like others before him, he too is after Spinosaurus. Armed with a geological survey of southern Morocco, the team's first port of call is a place called Anoual in the Atlas Mountains. The foothills of the Atlas are nearly 100 million years old. So team member Hans Larsson and Paul Serino check the sediment to see if any dinosaurs are buried here.
One of the fastest ways to tell what kind of sediment you're dealing with is just to taste it and chew it for a while.
Because with just 1 or 2 bites, you can determine how much grit is in a piece of sediment. It's a little gritty, but very, very, very slight.
Just a touch of salt.
Sediment reveals whether this land was once a forest, riverbed, or desert. This soil is embedded with gypsum, a mineral that originates in salt lakes. When the water dries up, gypsum remains.
One down the hill is almost a meter thick, and that's the most gypsum I've ever seen in my life.
100 million years ago, every lake and swamp for miles around would have been salty and unfit to drink. For a dinosaur, this was off limits. The chances of the team finding any fossils here was hopeless. Next, they set their sights on a region in southern Morocco called the Kem-Kem. Close to the Algerian border, temperatures here soar to 130 degrees. The sun is highest and the humidity lowest. Life shrinks from the heat. Undaunted by this hardship, the team combed the desert for 40 days and 40 nights. Just as they were about to call it quits, their luck changed.
Well, the morning had started out on a wrong foot. Literally, one of my boots had been plunged into water, and so we opened up the truck, and it was time to go prospecting, and I decided to prospect in one boot and one sandal. And I said to Jeff, I said, oh, I'll meet you at the truck, 'cause I'm going to go the long way around. It's easier to get down.
Gabrielle, all of a sudden, didn't come back for lunch on time, and we got very worried.
On the way, I stumbled over an incredible find. At the time, I didn't know it.
At the spot where Gabrielle Lyon made her discovery, the team uncovered a cache of bones. One bone in particular excited them. Several feet long, it looked like a spike from the sail of Spinosaurus. Finally, one night in camp, Serino began putting the pieces together.
I picked up the first fragment and put it right into place. As the hours passed, my eyes were just really, I just couldn't believe what was being assembled in front of me.
An expert at reconstructing dinosaurs, Serino was in for a shock. The bone didn't belong to Spinosaurus. It was the shoulder blade of a totally new dinosaur. Paul christened it Deltadromeus, meaning Delta Runner. A 35-foot killer with short arms and long legs, it was built for outrunning its prey at top speed. Deltadromeus lived 70 million years ago during the late Cretaceous, when the arid desert of Morocco was a semi-tropical paradise.